And we're back with the Professor of Perseverance podcast. And guess what? We're back with part two, a continuation of, we had some technical difficulties right when we're getting close to the end with Debbie Emick. And remember, she is the author of The Other Side of Perfect. And so she was at the point of telling us about some dark times in her life and how she was able to get through there. So, and here we go, Deb. There you are, pushing all these buttons. I'm trying to find you myself.
Hi,
Deb,
thanks
welcome
so
back
much.
for, we'll call it part two, but I'll edit some of this so it won't be a week in between for this. So we'll go from there. So,
All right. Well, thank you
so
so much. And yeah, sorry about those technical difficulties. It was such a great connection and conversation with you. I'm just really grateful we can pick it back up and finish it off.
there we go. Yeah, technology is awesome and great when it's working. Awesome and great.
Yep.
So
Yep.
when we have to, I'd hate to think we, as much as we are dependent on a bunch, not just computer, bunch of our new technological stuff. I mean, you'd hate to go back to the caveman days with us. I mean, we
Yeah.
would never know what to do.
That's true. I would not call myself like a tech wizard by any means. So, yeah, I'm just barely keeping up as it is. But I'm grateful for all these ways we can connect today that we couldn't in the past. It's really helpful.
Oh, and yeah, I'm not a technical wizard myself. I tell people because people would say, James, you know how to do, and I say I only know how to do what I want to know how to do. There's tons of stuff I have no clue about. I said, but if there's something I want to know, I'll figure it out or do the old YouTube thing and go from there to figure it out. But yeah, I only know what I want to know. I don't know everything. So
Yeah, that seems like just a good rule of life, right? Learn what you want to
that's
know.
it.
Yep.
I tell people that we're all gifted in some area. People, they think they don't move along in life. And I just finished up a module, 3 course module, mini course, and my book just came out with it on how to. It's your past doesn't have a future, but you do. Create your future today. And part of what I talk about on one thing is one reason people don't move along in life is because they think they're not smart enough. They're not
Mm.
talented enough. There's so much going on today. If you don't know it and you want to know it, then you have opportunities to find it out. It's not like we all have to be rocket scientists to know how to do
Mhm.
something and make a good living at it. So, just
Yeah.
and we're all gifted at something. We're all gifted at multiple things, but you need to find something that's going to help pay the bills and give you your passion and desire, knowing that you're helping other people as well.
Yeah, I agree, and congrats on your course and your book. That's pretty big.
We won't edit that out. So I'm being selfish now. We won't edit that out. So all right, Deb. So
Yeah,
so
of
Debbie.
course
So
not.
yeah. So all right. So we got to the part, and if you give us like a Reader's Digest for anybody that comes in now for part two, and that wasn't there for part one, you get a Reader's Digest on your beginning, and then we'll hop back in where we ended off, where we you were talking about the dark side had crept in and was easing out.
Sure, I'll try. I'll do my best. Really, the story I'm telling here is about this long road to autoimmune diagnosis, treatment, and then recovery, where I had tried in whatever ways I could to take back my power and my health, working through what I was eating and the supplements I was taking and eliminating toxicity in my environment and how I was moving my body. And finally, I stepped away from a stressful job, thinking that would be the magic bullet that solved all my problems. And it wasn't until then that I left my job that I found myself in this deep, dark depth, this hole that you are introducing me with at this point in the story. Um, I had tried everything, that I knew, and still I was tired and sick and in pain. And now I was deeply depressed. And so my work moving forward from there was really just to get out of that hole, for the sake of my daughters, because I couldn't really find that worthiness in myself at the time, but I knew they were worthy of breaking those cycles, not starting any new ones. And so the steps I began to take forward were in that respect. And it just so happened, as I began to work on my mental, emotional health, this physical pain that I had carried in my body related to my autoimmune diseases began to slowly lift, lessen, and eventually leave my body. And so I couldn't really deny that connection between those two seemingly separate parts of me. But, now in retrospect, it's all one, and it was all related. And so that's really the work I'm doing today and how I'm showing up in the world today.
Amen, sister. And so
Hmm.
the two other big things that I got from our first session, and I sound like a therapist now. First session was they had put you on some medication that you didn't find that was useful for you, and so you went to this holistic type to for your what we call ailment, the medicine healer, instead of taking
Hmm.
pills and stuff like that. And so you went that route, which is awesome. So for that, and so yeah, I'm one of them. I don't like taking an aspirin unless a headache is just so bad that I have
Right.
to. And so
Hmm.
so I can deal with that. And the other thing, here's where we were right when we were leaving off. We were talking about how you uncorked your genie when you had to
Oh,
air out, you remember, your dirty laundry to a
yeah.
therapist is what opened you up even more.
Yeah. Well, uh yeah, that's a good lead in. I would say so I went to a chiropractor seeking a probiotic recommendation, and she really saw through that, like I had really built this facade around myself of protection. Number 1, so I couldn't ever really deal with or see, I thought mistakenly, this trauma and these repressed emotions that I had gone through many, many years before, but never really dealt with. And so she kind of saw through that, and she did some somatic work and some energy work with me. And I would say that definitely uncorked that genie, as you said it. The way you said it was so like, oh, that would be fun to uncork a genie. This was less fun, but it ultimately led to where I'm at now, and was definitely something I had been putting off for so long. She really helped me in so many ways, but what she did was show me the way. And then, really, I mean, the responsibility was on my shoulders to keep exploring that and continuing the work and moving forward. And for me, that didn't mean going to a therapist. I did a lot of journaling, a lot of reading about the healing effects of journaling, and a lot of other methods to sort of calm my nervous system and bring myself to an awareness of my coping mechanisms, my daily actions, the stories I was telling myself. So I was using journaling, meditation, um, other things to sort of calm my nervous system. And I would say now, where I'm at, there's a middle, right? There's a place where we don't just need to seek the validation and treatment from someone with MD after their name, and we don't just need to go completely off the program, and against that. There's a middle there somewhere. It's not dichotomous or black and white. And so I'm very grateful for the specialists that I have that continue to monitor my lung disease, my heart disease, my autoimmune system. I still require a couple of prescription medications to keep that under control. Um, and at the same time, I know there are all of these other things that I can do within my power, within my control, to love and support myself and my body, to continue to grow that worthiness and love in myself that I couldn't find, you know, a while back when I found myself in that darkness.
The chiropractor that was wise enough to realize some things are going on,
Hmm.
gave you this opportunity to be open and honest and not worry about judgment and not worrying about hurting other people's feelings, and
Mhm.
probably gave you an awakening that maybe you have hidden for a while as well, something dark
Mhm.
and hidden way back in. We've all got to have somebody we can trust in,
Mhm.
confine in, and even when you're journaling, that's your therapy because you can be as open and honest as you want to, knowing
Yep.
no one's going to read it, or maybe they're not going to read it until you pass away, or again, let somebody read it that you know, again, that's going to help you in the long run, not be judgmental.
Mhm. Yeah, you're exactly right. There's this book called Expressive Writing. It has a very long subtitle. I don't remember all of it. One of the authors is someone named Pennebaker, and I read it, and it really gives good research about. Now, I am not a therapist, and I clearly have had my own emotional dark places, and I would not recommend, like, seek professional help. Certainly, if you need it, there's no shame there. I'm not trying to say that there is, but it was not the path I took. It was not something that I felt. I don't know. I didn't feel drawn to it. It wasn't accessible to me. I can't go back and take a different path. And so, journaling, in these studies is just as effective, if not more effective, in dealing with and releasing this trauma, right? This held trauma. And just so like, there's just as much research for this, like, held trauma and chronic illnesses like heart disease, like lung disease, like so many things. So, um, that book helped me see that relationship. And it also just gave me permission to get it all out. Right. And so that was one step. And you're right about my chiropractor too. Like, she really turned on a light of no judgment at all, just a realization that my body held a memory of things that went on, neither good nor bad. It was just this emotional memory that my body held. And she helped my body release that, right? So that is the mind body connection there. Our bodies, the chemical hormonal reactions in our bodies, don't know the difference between truth and a lie anyway. They just know what we tell it, what we believe here. And so, whether I'm being chased by a lion or I'm telling my body, like, there's a perceived threat, I need to hurry up and do something, it's going to dump the same chemicals, the same hormones. And so, when you do that over years and years and years, either because you've held a trauma or because that's how you've learned to respond to your environment in this fight or flight mode, it's going to create chronic dis-ease in your body rather than chronic health, right? Which is, we want long-term health. Um, and so I guess, like, that's me trying to put it all together, that this was all really about trying to get to the core of what had happened so that I could release it, so that I could calm my nervous system, so that I wasn't constantly in fight or flight. And those were both two very big keys to doing that, for sure.
For sure. Now, I second what you say. If you're struggling mentally, emotionally, physically, find help, seek help, find someone you can trust. Again, they don't have to be in the professional field, even though that would probably be the best to go to at the time. But find someone you can open up to honestly and get everything out, and then seek help as much as possible from there. So, the thing about the going to talk to a psychologist or psychiatrist, we've got that perception that if I talk to them, people's going to say I'm crazy. And
Mm.
people worry about that perception when they knew you're going to them. And I tell people now, because I had to see a psychologist for a year, because I told you I
Mhm.
attempted suicide. And so I had to see him for a year. So I try to explain to people that you need to exercise your body to stay as healthy as possible. You need to
Mhm.
exercise your mind to stay as healthy as possible, whether that is reading, journaling, meditating, positive messages, music,
Mhm.
inspiration poems, or seeking counseling, whether again it's professional, preacher, minister, your best friend, spouse, someone you can
Yeah.
open up to and be um, honest with everybody and go from there. But yeah, we we got to get away from that perception that people think we're crazy.
Mhm.
Again, we exercise the body, exercise your mind as well.
I agree 100%. Hopefully, you can do all those things. Most of them are free, right? Meditation, journaling, all of that stuff. So, and I hope it's becoming more, just
Acceptable.
every day. Yeah, less stigmatized, especially because of COVID. Like, I think there's so much of it happening this way, through like a Zoom call or something. You don't even have to get out of your house and go anywhere. So yeah, I think so many people are making it so much more normalized and just being open and honest about seeking out help and how important it
I,
is.
again, I would think like you. I would think this as being more acceptable, more uh, not trend, but more acceptable, open for people, and people not being stigmatized with it. So
Mhm.
it may be just when you're kids and you hear about something like that and you go, man, they're crazy. When you're kids,
Yeah.
but when you're adult, it may not have that same
Yeah.
as what I was thinking. So, all right, now Debbie, so from getting your first diagnosis with your physical ailments and everything, and then moving towards with the chiropractor, and then you're even still today working on things like you said with your
Mhm.
journaling and other things. How long of a period has this taken you to where you're feeling better about yourself and everything?
So my first diagnosis was really almost 10 years ago. Maybe almost 11 years ago. It took me a long time to get to the point where I left my job. That was probably about 4 years ago. And then really hit a bottom and started working my way out of there. Um, what I've learned is there's no magic bullet, right? That's not how it works. So forever I was just like, this will be the one thing that will solve everything. This will be the one thing that will solve everything. And so it is a slow process. Once I did see the chiropractor, however, and she helped me do this like physical type work, helping my body release those stored memories. I would say in relation to that long, 10-year time, it was relatively short that the pain started to lessen. That didn't mean my work was done, but it was a matter of maybe 3 months of doing that somatic work with her and the pain really lessening. And eventually, I don't live with pain on a daily basis anymore. Um, I wrote a book about it that was part of the healing, and I started that process about 2 years ago. And so all of that also is still part of my growth and part of my healing. So, I mean, short answer is years. It's taken years to get where I'm at now. And I'm still going. There's no arriving. There's just taking the one small next step that I can. But certainly where I'm at today versus where I was 10 years ago, I night and day, literally. I'm in the light now, out of that darkness. And most days are great. I couldn't ask for more for my body. So
So, and remember, we mentioned this earlier. So, it's okay to visit Peteyville, just don't move in. So,
yeah, yeah.
and so don't forget that. So, we're going to have days where we don't feel as good and don't feel as
Hmm.
strong, but sit back, think about how far you come and how far you can go, and again, go from there. So,
Hmm.
I tell you, you're amazing. It's hard to believe that when you talk about you again, you just indicated the darkness. You never attempted anything, suicide or
Hmm.
whatnot. And again, I'd mentioned right before you got kicked off the wide world web last time was thankful that your children were there because you were thinking of
Yeah.
them more than yourself and what you didn't want them to be going through afterwards. And so that was awesome. So for them and for you to have that. So
Hmm.
how have you been able to maintain? I mean, you seem as positive as anybody that's
Uh,
gone through this struggle. So, how have you been able to maintain this positivity?
this is a deep a deeper question than it might appear, but for me, for so long, my coping mechanism was perfectionism and people pleasing. So that was this fake outer shell, right? And truly healing took, first of all, becoming conscious of that and then stripping that back so that I could become vulnerable and real in the way that I just saw myself. Number one, I never thought I was perfect, but I was trying to be as perfect as I could be and get as perfect as I could be. And I held people back, from really seeing the true me, making real connection with people with that. And so that was you know, figuring that out is a tricky thing. Deciding to leave perfectionism and people pleasing behind is a tricky thing. And like I told you, I did that for my daughters who I knew were worthy. But after a certain amount of time, I knew that that was more of just like do as I say, not as I do. And being a teacher, I was a classroom teacher for 14 years. I knew that wasn't a real way to teach anyone anything. So I knew I had to develop a self love that was so deep that it just spilled over onto the others around me. It wasn't out of duty or obligation or being a martyr, like this is the perfect way to be a mother. It had to be out of I love myself so much that it just spills out and my daughters see it and they want to do that themselves. And so that meant having people come into my life intentionally seeking out relationships that could, number one, teach me how to do that and support me in that growth process and be there for me. My husband was certainly one, being open and honest with him about what I needed and the support I needed. Our relationship had to change, and he did that with me. He came along with me. But I also sought out intentionally women that I saw this quality in, that I wanted to learn from, and developed a community of those women that help me grow and they support me. And so I guess my answer to that, I needed to go back to the perfectionism and people pleasing because I have always been a positive, forgiving person, I thought, but it was very superficial, right? It was like I never really dealt with the real pain that I was being positive or forgiving away. And becoming real, like getting rid of that perfectionism and people pleasing, meant I really dealt with that stuff so that I could truly move on, not in a superficial way. So I hope my positivity isn't just some outward shell, just like I'm moving on. It's more of a like seeing these obstacles that have been in my life as a gift. Uh, that may sound really tricky to someone who's in a deep, dark moment, but it is so much the truth. Each obstacle just pointed the way to where my life was meant to go. It just led me to the next thing. And I have to say, that's miles better than where I was before this happened. So my diagnosis ultimately are a gift. That deep darkness was a gift. They showed me the next place. They showed me my true work. They showed me how I should show up in the world. And for that, I'm grateful. And that is where the positivity comes from. It's that gratitude of the real depth of those obstacles and what they've given me.
And you said that you hope this is not an outer shell just showing that really you
Mhm.
are. And the only true way you're going to know that is to be honest with yourself. I mean,
Mhm.
you can fool, fool all the people some of the time or whatever it is, but
Yeah.
however it goes, but but
Mhm.
you can't fool yourself. So as long
Yeah.
as you know you're open and honest and being with yourself, being positive, it's going to come out to everybody else. And talking about your obstacles as a gift and everything, there was a book and I can't remember the exact title, but it was something like the gift of adversities. And so
Oh.
yeah, and I don't know if that's the exact title, but it's
Mhm.
similar to that, the gift of adversities or adversity as a gift, something like that. So people, someone talking about using,
Yeah.
and I again, I believe one reason we struggle is not to try to damage us, but it's to help build us up, build our
Mhm.
self confidence, build our self esteem, and to show how strong we really are. And then you're going to demonstrate that example to someone that's watching you, and they're going to learn from you, and they're going to get through a hard time because they learned it from you. So I believe that.
That's the ultimate hope, right? I mean, I do hope that. I'm grateful that, I was able to come through it for sure. I haven't read that book, but I have read The Obstacle is the Way by Ryan Holiday, which goes back to Stoic philosophy. But essentially the obstacle in the path becomes the path. So a resilient way of looking at obstacles and getting through them. And it's not a platitude when I say these were gifts in my life, and they've helped me show up in a completely different way than I ever have. And yeah, the hope is that it could, in some way, tiny or big, be an inspiration to someone else to do the same.
Yeah, and with obstacles, challenges, adversities, however you put it, uh, we don't have to love what's going on, but we
Mm.
need to accept it, learn from it, and stay as positive and powerful as positive as much as possible, so we can move forward. And again, we have Debbie Emick on the other side of perfect, her book. And I'm going to ask you a question here. How long did it take you to write your book?
Well, that the actual physical writing part of it was a matter of a summer, some months. So, um, because you wrote a book and like the nuts and bolts of it are, I knew how many words I needed to get to. I divided that up and it was like I put my butt in the chair in front of a computer and I wrote for 2 hours or 2,000 words, whatever I got to first. And stopped. And so that was a few months maybe, and then the editing took a very long time. That was going back and editing once, editing maybe like 4 times, when all was said and done or more. So but the just spewing out the words was just a matter of a few months probably. How about you?
My first book took me 12 years.
Oh, really?
I'd write 3 pages, then I wouldn't touch it for 6 months. And then I'd
Okay.
write a page and a half, and then come back in a month and a half, And I tell people it's just a miracle. You know how we update our computers? And I
Yeah.
said, it's a miracle that that manuscript didn't get lost in the time I
Mm.
changed. Because I know if I'd have lost it, I would have never started over. So it was a miracle in itself for that.
Yeah,
So
no kidding. And that you finished it after, most people would say, oh, it's been 12 years. So good for
Well,
you. That's
what had
amazing.
happened again after my suicide attempt and meeting with a psychologist, he said you need to write a book, you're to help other people. And then I was going, well, I started this one book, and then I started going, well, if you're going to finish it, now's the time to finish it. And
Right.
and so so I hopped on, and once I got strong with finishing, I think and with the editing, like you said, we from that process finishing writing, editing, maybe a year to
Mm,
finish it up then with the editing and everything. So
okay.
I would encourage everybody to write a book. If nothing else, it's to pass on to somebody they're going through something. Somebody's going through the same
Mhm.
thing you've been through. If you think you're the first one that's going through something, you're mistaken. So
Right.
and so yeah, I think everybody ought to write a book. And again, it's something that's going to be held on for 100 years from now, and somebody's going to find it and go, "Wow!" And from there.
Yeah.
So and plus, I wish the technology was this easy on doing books 40 years ago, and would have loved 30 years ago, 20 years ago to get stories from my grandparents on how they
Right.
were, they didn't have all this technology. And then to get
Mhm.
their stories would have been awesome. We don't have them now because they passed away. So they're
Yeah.
all gone. So all right,
Yeah.
Deb, appreciate you being here. Yeah, and you're just a strong woman for everything you've been through. An incredible woman. We're all going through something, but again, it's easy to give up. Um, Someone told me one time, says, "I don't think I could do what you're doing." Me, my wheelchair. I said, "Well, I figured I had two options. One, I can not do anything and lay in bed and let someone feed me, water me like a plant,
Mhm.
and watch the TV channels that they're watching because they're controlling the remote, or I could do it the hard, or I could do it the hard way and do the best I can in life." So I'm
Yeah.
glad that you decided to do it the hard way and best you can in life. So
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I appreciate that. I don't always feel all of those things I hear you say, but I really appreciate that. And, ultimately they're both hard, right? It is what it is. You either go through it or you are stuck in the hard. So I think they're both difficult. So we just have to choose if we want out of it or not. Yeah.
That's right. So, hey, tell us how people can find you in case somebody wants to ask you a question, or I don't know if you got speaking or not. So if someone to get you on another podcast, how they can find you.
Sure. So you can find the book, The Other Side of Perfect, Discovering the Mind Body Connection to Healing Chronic Illness, anywhere books are sold online, or you can go to gobucketyourself.com/books and we'll help you there. You can figure out what all we're up to at gobucketyourself.com. You can listen to a podcast that my husband and I have called One Life Live It. Everything we do at Go Bucket Yourself, One Life Live It, is to empower people to begin living the life they want to live today instead of waiting for someday. And I love to hear from anyone that has any questions or wants to reach out. I'm on Instagram under imperfectprogress.me. So that's the letter I, the letter M, perfectprogress.me. If you send me a message, I will definitely respond. So reach out. I'd love to hear from anyone.
And I'll link this stuff in the description and show notes here as well to make it easier on everybody to find. So, well, we appreciate you being here. And again, I tell people, if nothing else, I'm getting fired up from all of this. So,
Uh,
they say with this other thing, if I can help one person, well, you've helped me, Debbie. So you get me all
oh,
fired up. So you got
well,
you one person. Now we just build on it and we get multiple people. So
well,
if you
thank
could,
you. Right back at you.
well, thank you. Thank
Sorry.
you. If you can, no, it's okay. If you can leave us with a big, powerful message, there's people
Mm,
struggling out there today. And so if you can help that one person that help them get through whatever and give them just some positive message to go from here.
yeah, I'll actually try to be brief on this one. I would
Do what you need.
say,
Do what you need.
I would say you don't need to know all the steps. You just need to know the next step. So, um, if you're struggling in any way and you don't want to stay stuck there, just the tiniest next step, and maybe it's not the right step and it helps you recalibrate and find the right step, and that's okay too. You don't need to know all the steps, just the very next step.
All right. Thank you. And just think of it as a steps going up steps. You just need
Mm,
to get to the next step to get up higher to get where you're going. So, like you said, just
mhm,
know find the next step that's going to help you whatever you're going through. So that's an
mhm.
awesome way to look at it. Thank you, Debbie. And so our guest today was Debbie Emick, and the book On the Other Side of Perfect. Again, I'll link her information down below for you to find her. Everyone else, thank you for coming in. For the people in the replay, thank you for showing up. Be sure to share this out to someone. Again, you don't have to be going through an autoimmune deficiency like Debbie, or you don't have to be a spinal cord injury. The positive message is going to help people in whatever their situation. So, everyone, thank you for coming in. Do something today, tomorrow, something next week that's going to help you persevere past your paralysis.